Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Comments World. I'd like to start by saying thank you to everyone who watched, commented and liked the last video. It was a really good response. On the screen now you can see the comments that I'll be building this episode. Although I did get in contact with Computer Geek 118 and we agreed that an aeroplane would be a much more manageable task than an airport. So we're beginning here with the helicopter as requested by Le Snake. We do have a lot to get through, so I've condensed it as much as possible by speeding up the video to 4 times speed and skipping the boring bits such as filling in walls. I appreciate after looking back on this that it does make the camera view quite juddery, so I'm going to try and look at getting a third-person camera sort of perspective. I don't know if you know what I mean, I've seen it in other videos, just so that you can watch my avatar flying around and building rather than the first-person view. Looking at what I've done so far, I've just started with the base up in the sky. I made sure that there's an odd number of bricks in the middle because I'm going to want the seat in the centre, and begun building the frame. There I've just put some glass on. It's sort of a squashed ovalish shape with the details where you'd expect it to be in a helicopter, and by no means was this as straightforward as it looks, sped up to 4 times. There's a lot of moving away, having a look at it from a distance and making sure everything looks in proportion. The detailing I've been adding, such as the concrete slabs and the concrete stairs, really does add the shape to such a small build. At this point, most of the helicopter was done, so all that was left to add was just the tail details, such as the tail rotor and the large rotor on top, or propellers you might want to call them. So there's the hub, just a straightforward concrete brick, and then a little diagonal zigzag with the slabs, of which you can just break half of them off to give it a quite a nice propeller feel. And there we go, that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. I think it looks reasonably well. You can certainly tell it's a helicopter. Just put in some staircase for a seat and a lever for the controls. So there you go, Le Snake, there's your helicopter. Thanks very much for the comment. Moving on now to the aeroplane, and this was definitely one of the more fiddly things that I've had to build. It was something that every time I flew away and had a look at it from a distance, there's always something which needed adding or taking away, or texture put in here, or maybe that material wasn't wrong. There were just lots of bits that I wasn't quite sure what to do first time. As you can see right now, I was having difficulty attaching the end rods to the dispenser I was using as the front of the plane. So I had to build that little wooden circle, I suppose, to attach the end rods to the wood so that they would then be, after I've knocked the blocks out, attached to the dispenser. Again, there's a lot of fiddling with this build. For the wings, I wasn't entirely sure what material I should use, and perhaps controversially I went for the iron trap door. They were nice and thin and I thought they had a good texture. This was an old biplane sort of design, so I went for a double wing with the top being above the first. And this looked really good, but I did come across a problem when putting in end rods in between for supports in terms of it didn't fit. So I just had to redo that top wing, putting it all 1 slot higher than before. And again, this led to a little bit of fiddling around. I wanted 2 sets of 2 end rods in the middle for supports, and the wings weren't just quite long enough, so I had to redo those. Adding the tail on the back, it was just a case of the old staircase trick, back to back, and you'll see that a lot more in this video when we get to the cabin in the woods. And just a lot of editing, knocking blocks out, filling blocks in, trying to think where the driver's going to be, and getting a bit of shape. Part of what made getting the shape a little bit more difficult with this is there's a lot of half slabs, and with half slabs you need to make sure that everything is exactly right, because you can't put a full slab next to a half slab if they're, I don't know how to put it, out of sync, as you can see here with the wheels. But I ended up going for, the half slab with a diagonally placed wheel, which is just a block of wool. I know wool isn't what you'd use for a wheel, but it looks good. And I felt that addition, really tied the whole thing together. Trimming out a little bit of the bottom there, I can definitely tell where it's meant to be now. Switching some of the wood for concrete just ties it together. You can see here I'm just well, extending the wings to fill the void of what I mentioned earlier, just an extra couple of end rods. And now to get on to the seating, because every plane needs a seat. So to do this, I wanted to put a rail cart in, because a rail cart is one of the few things you can click, and similarly to a boat, you'll be actually in that object. And you can see me trying that out in a minute. Just a right click, and there I am, sat there in the plane I've just built. It does look, however, as though it's hovering, just placed there in the sky, so I wanted to put an effect in which made it look like it was travelling, and to do this, it was just cobwebs, similar to the glass last episode. Just lined them up and broke out the middle, and there we go. I think it looks pretty good, especially at night time. So thank you very much for that comment, Computer Geek 118. We've moved on now to the request by Jack Franklin, and that's to build a cabin in the woods with a lake. Now this is certainly one of the larger builds, and the largest for this episode, but for anyone who's been playing a while, building houses and, cottages, cabins, that sort of thing should be second nature, because it's something you'll do first of all. Everyone wants a nice house, and the materials are usually pretty easy to get hold of. You can see here I'm just using dark oak logs and cobblestone at the minute. And that's just to make the frame to start off with. Like I mentioned earlier, here are those back-to-back stairs, and that's what I'm going to do just across the build to get the roof. And the walls are just going to be nothing special, just blocks and blocks of wood to get essentially a block frame with a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth because of the logs we've placed out front and will run along the sides. You can see though I have made a little bit of an error, and I'm just correcting that by moving the logs at the front back one so it does get that depth I just mentioned. So there it is, just filled in essentially with the dark wood frame. I've just done a little bit of detailing at the front, and I want to make it an L shape really, with the L facing towards the lake, or the bit I'm doing now facing towards the lake. So I'm just starting again with the log frame. You do it in exactly the same way, and what you end up with is this. The roof just fills itself in. When two stairs meet, they just form a little like a corner in the wall, so there's nothing extra to it. I'm just going to go around the building and add in bits of extra detail, so things like the door, the window, the little staircases in the corner to give it a bit more of a shape, like that. And then add some stairs on the floor just to make the door a bit more accessible. The windows aren't anything special. I'm literally just knocking out whatever block I think will work and putting glass in. This can be whatever you want, different shapes, sizes, it doesn't really matter. It's all going to look reasonably effective in the end, as long as you don't get those corners mixed up. You can see I've done something slightly different on each wall. This longer one, I thought, a few doubles next to each other would look quite good, and that's what I put in. Again, just trimming the corners with those staircases. One thing that's definitely missing though is a nice chimney, so I just put that in somewhere around the centre. Again, cobblestone, cobble wall there, and that cobwebs. Sorry, that cobweb effect that we used earlier, just on top to make it look like a bit of smoke coming out. Really does tie it all together. So to finish off the build, just a couple more staircases at the back door, and a few glass windows just to finish it off. We'll complete the cabin. Yeah, I think that looks reasonably nice. If I was a Minecraft person, I wouldn't mind living there at all. So moving on to the lake, this is nice and quick. Just dig out the ground and fill it up with water. No particular shape, just, a mishmash. It's kind of ovalish, however you feel fit. I've put in a little walkway here, and a boat just to show it's occupied, someone's living around, and lily pads just make it look that little bit nicer. Next up, I thought to add a few lanterns, and this was just some nether brick fence with glowstone on top. I didn't like the one on the right, I took that out, but just dotted a few more around, a couple around the lake, and a couple around where I thought the wood might go afterwards, the little, forest area I was to build. I also put a couple just in the corners in the house to make it look like some lights were on and someone was home. And now onto the tree. And I'm just going to show you me building one and then skip to the next frame where they'll all be finished. I went for fir trees because if I went for oak trees, they're quite big and puffy on top, and I wouldn't be able to get them very close to the house without you not being able to see it from a distance or above. So I thought a pine tree, fir tree, it would have a pointier tip and a wider base, meaning that looking from above and from a distance, it'd be much easier to see the house and the lake. So I just started with the base and really just fill it up outside in, increasing into a long central stem, and then build branches off of that, as you can see me doing. There's not really any science to it. You just you go round it circularly and build from a slightly higher up point each time, outwards and downwards, as you can see I've done. Once you've got a frame which you think looks pretty tree-like, just add leaves on, as you can see I'm doing. I'm literally just spamming the apply button all over each branch. And as I work up, I'm just covering the tops, and some of the sides will be left out, and you end up with something like that. And what I did there was just got a different type of leaf and deleted a few and replaced it with them just to give a bit more texture. But I thought that looked pretty okay as a tree, and then just repeated this over and over to get a little forest, or a little woodland as has been requested. I've just flown around to give you an idea of what it looks like inside. I'm not going to go too much bigger because, well, it will take a lot of time, and I think I've achieved what was asked, which is a cabin in a wood by a lake. So there you go, Jack Franklin. I hope that's nice enough for you. Now on to the last build, and this was requested by Frederick Artichoke, and it read to build a cheeseburger, but also the cheeseburger has eyes. And I do have a confession to make at this point in time. When I was building it, in my mind it was a hamburger. So I have built just a plain burger. Please forgive me, I've forgotten the cheese. But I think it turns out okay anyway, and I hope you'll forgive me, Frederick. So I've started, as you can see, with the bun, and I've started it off the ground. And the reason for that is I'm going to add a little bit extra to it rather than just eyes. Again, hopefully you'll approve, Frederick, but I thought it was something which would make it a bit unusual and a bit quirky, and give the burger a bit more character and personality than just with some eyes. Nothing too technical. I've just done the bun out of wooden planks, put the burger, some lettuce and tomato, and then topped it off with the other half of the bun, which was built in exactly the same way as the base you just saw me do. So now it's time for the eyes, and I've done this just with some black and white wool, so he's looking down and to the right, and then added a moustache, again with wool, in the centre of the burger, coming up to give his face a bit more of a personality, I suppose. He is a Sir Burger. A couple of legs there prevent him from defying the laws of gravity, and a nice black top hat will keep his head warm in the winter, and keep him looking stylish, of course. There we go, a couple of arms will probably finish him off. Actually, as I've given him a hat, why not give him a cane as well? Just a few logs will do the trick, and I think he looks pretty good. There's your burger with eyes, Frederick. I hope you like him. And that concludes the builds for this episode. Thanks to everyone who commented, and I hope I did your builds proud. If you could all like this video and subscribe to my channel, that'd be very much appreciated. And if you want to see your comment built in the next episode, please leave the comment down below. Thanks, and see you then.